Hey Buff fans, Troy and I are back with another episode of the CU Sports Report podcast. The Buffs are in sole possession of second place in the Big 12 after going into Lubbock and beating Texas Tech. I will say for the record, Nigel, our photographer, and I survived that trip after a very tumultuous road trip, and we basically went through every state you could possibly go through to get there and back to Texas, to Colorado. But despite the trauma that that road trip inflicted, I'm okay. I made it. I am a little sick, so pardon my voice as we go through this. Very exciting win in Lubbock. A lot of tortillas flying. Nigel claimed one of Shador Sanders' signed tortillas. He's very proud of his acquisition and very exciting win with a final scoop and score from Shiloh Sanders, a strip sack from Arden Walker. At the end there, it was like, ooh, is Texas Tech going to get another touchdown here? But overall, they stopped the run. That was their main assignment, maybe a little less in the fourth quarter, but Taj Brooks didn't really have a big night. He did become Texas Tech's leading rusher. He did get 130 something yards, but from through three quarters, so they kind of did a good job holding him to under 5 yards. He didn't get a run longer than 5 yards. But before I get into all that, they did a good job on Texas Tech. They got Utah this weekend. Big noon kickoff is coming. And there are a lot of visitors on the docket, and I have all of those here. We'll get into recruiting first, but yeah, fun time at Texas Tech. I always love going to Texas because the hospitality is great. Shout out to this old guy that, well, he told me he was going to listen to this podcast, but he's an Ole Miss fan, and that weekend, Ole Miss beat Georgia, so we were all celebrating together, and he was hilarious. So if you're listening to this, shout out to you, man. Um, so just some recruiting notes. When we talked to Coach Prime on Tuesday, we kind of got into this conversation of recruiting and what the Buffs have planned out for the future. And he said, we already have this thing mapped out, not only for this year, but the year thereafter. So there's a lot of future planning on what this team is going to look like and the assets that they're going to bring in. But for this weekend, there's a lot of 4 stars and 5 stars making a stop by Boulder this weekend, especially IMG Academy players. So the first one, Nathaniel Wosu Batang, 2025 5 star. Michigan is currently the favorite in his recruitment. There's Notre Dame there, but Colorado is certainly in the mix for him this week, and he is in Boulder this week. Also taking a visit with him is 4 star defensive end London Merritt. He is currently committed to Ohio State. Him and Nathaniel are taking in weekday visits this week. I don't know if they're going to be there this weekend, but another very elite offensive lineman is currently committed to Alabama. Michael Carroll, 4 star OL out of Florida, out of IMG Academy. He's visiting Colorado this weekend. Of course, it's hard to compete with Alabama, but the way that Colorado has been playing and the way that the season's going, it's bringing a lot of positive light into a program that has been continuing to build something great for the future with the talent that they have on their roster. Quanell X Farrakhan is going to be in Boulder this weekend. He's currently committed to Colorado, and another Colorado commit, Mantrez Walker, will be in Boulder this weekend. So some guys that are going to be talking to some other guys are like, hey, come to Boulder. They're very interesting conversations there, and Mantrez Walker has been very vocal on Twitter on guys who post about Boulder, and he's like, hey, come be a Buff. Julian Lewis, some updates on him. He's taking a visit to Georgia, which was kind of a random
He never
visit
takes a
because,
off.
yeah, he's visiting everywhere he can possibly visit. Georgia hasn't really been on the radar at all until this past week, where his visit was announced. But when it comes to Colorado, they have the best chance of flipping him currently, and it does look pretty good from what Colorado is offering him. Those conversations there, Colorado is in a good position for Julian Lewis, and as Coach Prime says, they already have this thing mapped out. So maybe Julian Lewis is in within that map, and they could be the quarterback for the future there. But another big recruiting weekend, a lot of big names, and when we talked to Coach Prime on Tuesday, he was talking about how he wants his freshmen to play because he does a lot of work in the transfer portal, but when it comes to freshmen, he wants them to see action, and he wants to maintain those recruitment acquisitions because they spend so much time and money investing into those guys, and then sometimes they hop in the portal or it doesn't work out. But moving forward, they're really selective on who they want on their freshman year roster in this 2025 class, so they can keep them for the future and build something great. So portal, we're gonna expect some things from the portal in the off season, and hopefully, as this year goes on, we'll get some more commitments. Signing day is on December 4th, so maybe some dominoes will fall as we get to the end of the football season. Texas Tech, as I mentioned, beginning was kind of interesting. Colorado was not able to score on the first four drives. They just kind of looked lackadaisical in their routes. They switched Cash Cleveland into center after Hank Salakis fumbled the snap. He finished that opening series, but the offensive line got mixed up. It was the first time they did any switch at center. It didn't come until the fifth drive of the game where Colorado got into Texas Tech's territory. They took it down for a touchdown, and then from then on, they scored on the following four drives. So a little lull at the beginning, more production as the game went on, and they were able to tear up a defense that wasn't looking very good. I was sitting next to Brian Howell in the press box, and we're like, why Colorado should be able to stop this team? This is a team that runs the ball a lot. That first drive, it just kind of opened up, and then those following two drives, Texas Tech only acquired two field goals, but at one point Colorado was down 13-0, and it was a little bit lopsided from what Brian and I and what we all kind of anticipated. Um, when you watch the first half, what kind of changed within the offense from them going a little bit slower to all of a sudden? I mean, it was the short field too that helped, but Colorado immediately they were a little bit slow at the beginning and then turned on the gas midway through the second half. What was your kind of analysis of the first half in Colorado's offensive production?
Yeah, you called it interesting. That's one way to put it. I was here calling it terrible,
Oh,
basically. It didn't make a lot of sense because Texas Tech, we talked all week about how their defense had pretty much stunk the entire year, right? And then CU shows up and they can't move the ball, and there's pressure on Shedeur Sanders, struggling to run the ball. I mean, they started the game. They were pretty clearly, it was a little surprising. It felt kind of like Nebraska at the beginning. They were a little bit rattled. Tech started the game with the big kickoff return, and then I think they scored in 4 plays, and it was 7-0, like bang, in 2 minutes. And then CU comes out on offense, and they get a false start, and then Hank snaps the ball early, and it's second and 19, like immediately. And there's still 12 and a half minutes left in the first quarter. And it was like, whoa, like this thing needs to slow down. It needs to slow down. And it did eventually, obviously. I do think that the big adjustment was something that we also talked about on this podcast last week. It was getting the ball out to the wide receivers quickly on the perimeter. It was a lot of those first couple of series. It was a lot of that pure drop back game, Shedeur Sanders trying to find stuff down the field, which wasn't really there. I think you saw the pivot to a lot of screens, a lot of these little hitches, spot routes, just things, little short passes over the middle, over the ball. And then what you saw was what we kind of talked about in the lead-in, was that Texas Tech really struggled to tackle these guys on the perimeter. A couple numbers here. Shedeur threw for 291 yards in the game. Only 50 of those were it through the air. 241 yards of those 291 came after the catch. So that is a huge, huge number. I think the CU receivers on pass plays forced 10 missed tackles. Travis Hunter forced 7 missed tackles on 9 catches. So almost every time he got the ball, somebody missed a tackle. Will Sheppard forced 3 missed tackles. So pretty much all of this production through the air was coming after the catch. A lot of those little screen plays. That's kind of how they started moving the ball. They ran the ball a little bit better too. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on with these screens is that
Mhm.
it feels like that Pat Shermer is really, and we've talked about this before, but Pat Shermer is really kind of figuring out how to use his guys, even up front. I tweeted about this during the game, but Jordan Seaton is such a good athlete, and using him out on those screens, getting him out on the perimeter, getting him up to the second level, letting him kind of get in space and block some of these linebackers, some of these defensive backs. That is a huge weapon for this team to have a guy that is such an effective blocker out in space, such an effective blocker downfield. When you combine that with the explosiveness of this receiving core and the playmaking ability, that's how you get some of these chunk plays on really easy completions. A lot of times screens get referred to as an extension of the run game. It's a free completion and you get your guys the ball, and that's how CU is getting a lot of these yards. So that was a really nice adjustment from Shermer, and that's to me that was pretty clearly how the offense kind of got off the ground.
Yeah, and I think we've seen gradually throughout this season this offense scoring more points, and that's due to Pat Shermer's creativity, understanding how you mentioned how to use his guys, and um, Jordan Cena is a crucial part in this. Well, overall this season, protecting Shador and getting some more production in those chunk plays. LeJontay Wester too. You talk about guys being out on the perimeter. He had a huge run into the end zone for 23 yards due to Travis Hunter providing a really effective block there. And it just looked, once they started getting it going, it looked a lot more cohesive, and the wide receivers are doing a heavy lifting there at the end. They didn't running the ball. They had wasn't as productive as it was in the past couple games. Isaiah Augusta 10 carries for 32 yards, but against Texas Tech, who was 128th in FBS in passing defense, this was a game that they were going to pass the ball inevitably and try to manipulate them as much as they could with a really versatile wide receiving core. Travis Hunter was 1 yard away from tying the program record for 100-yard games this year, so six. So he's still at five, and he was
Something tells
so
me he'd get there.
yeah. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background, but she's like banging on the door. One thing as well, because on the defensive side too, but we the biggest priority going into this game was stopping the run. Through three quarters, Colorado did not allow Taj Brooks to get a carry more than 5 yards. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where things kind of started getting a little bit not messy, but a little bit closer in game. But overall, for a guy that is one of the best running backs behind RJ Harvey, one of the best running backs in the Big 12, 4.4 yards per carry is a very good number to stand at for a guy that can really break out into some big runs. Amari McNeil was phenomenal. Probably had his best game of his career at Texas Tech. He had 9 tackles, one and a half sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and he was just getting into the backfields immensely. He was really explosive there, and overall, Colorado racked up 10 tackles for loss and 6 sacks on Ben Morton, and it was slowly but surely after that first drive, you could see there was some frustration there. There was just some, you mentioned it, the 4 plays, there was just wide, Josh Kelly was just wide open and there was no one covering him. And it's like, okay, whoa, what's going on here? And then slowly they were able to get some better stops on him. And I believe, yeah, in the second quarter, Texas Tech didn't score 1 point. And then in the third quarter, only one touchdown. In the fourth quarter, one touchdown as well. So from a defensive perspective, Colorado's pass rush last game, they weren't as effective in the pass rush, but they showed a similar game that they had against UCF, 7 sacks, 6 sacks in this game. And this is a pass rush that is a force to be reckoned with. A lot of different guys, a lot of rotations that they're going into. And I think everyone on that front is playing some of their best football this season. From a defensive perspective, what were you really impressed with in Lubbock?
On the surface, this isn't like nitty gritty or anything, but just the grit and the will of this unit. Uh, the reason that CU had a chance to come back in this game was because the defense forced 2 field goals when Texas Tech, I mean, 13 to nothing could have been 21 to nothing pretty easily. And at 21 to nothing, you're looking at a pretty steep hill to climb. 13 to nothing, it's 2 scores, you can get back into it. So I thought that the fact that they were able to just hunker down and force a couple of field goals and get a couple of stops, which kind of reset the momentum. One of the biggest plays of the game, in my opinion, was um, Texas Tech had the ball 13 to nothing. Baron Morton scrambled for 9 yards on first down, and it was 2nd and 1. And then Arden Walker got a sack on 2nd and 1, and that led to a punt. And that play to me was when everybody kind of took a deep breath and was like, all right, we got to stop. We forced 3 and out. Now we can start clicking on offense. Pat Shermer made those adjustments, and CU got back in the game. You mentioned the run defense, and pretty much everybody was phenomenal in this game. You mentioned Amari McNeil. He was great. BJ Green was great. Both of the linebackers continue to be just amazing run defenders. Levante Bentley and Nikai Hill Green, those are 2 guys that you do not want to see if you're a running back running through the hole. They bring it to you every week. They did it again. The one guy that I kept looking at on when I was rewatching the game was Chidozie Nwankwo. This guy is a really, really good football player. He's not, playing so much defensive tackle, spends a lot of time in the A gap. He's not going to show up a ton on the stat sheet. He did have 6 tackles in this game. Just gonna be, which is pretty big for a guy at that position, but he makes it so difficult for teams to run the ball. When he doesn't make the tackle, he usually is a big part of why somebody was able to make the tackle for a gain of 1 or for no gain. He eats up double teams against these zone schemes. Uses his arms really, really well, gets his arms extended, doesn't let offensive linemen get into his chest, which kind of allows him to get off blocks really well. Um, He's plugging the hole and making the running back skip over a gap, which gives the linebackers time to get downhill to make those stops. Just a really, really good football player, and had a great game on Saturday. PFF credited him with 4 stops, which are tackles that result in an unsuccessful or a failed play for the offense,
Mm.
uh, which is a lot. Arden Walker had a ton too. I think he had 5 in this game. But that was just someone I wanted to highlight who over and over rewatching the game, I was like, he was constantly affecting the game, especially in the run game. And I think he's kind of become, the linebackers have gotten a lot of praise. These edge rushers, rightfully so, have gotten a ton of praise. And I think Chidozie Nwankwo has become kind of the unsung hero in this run defense. And he is a big, big reason why a lot of these other guys are able to make so many plays.
Yeah, it's good to shout him out. That's something that I didn't personally recognize in the game, but of course your analysis is very great, and I learn a lot from you when we talk about the defense and talk about the offense as well. Pivoting to Travis Hunter, Heisman favorite currently, and deservedly so. On 46 passing plays in Texas Tech, he was targeted 0 times, and he had 1 interception that was negated by a penalty, and it was
It's
the most
amazing.
insane. It was the most
It was
insane interception. Even some of the Texas Tech guys I was sitting next to, they were like, "Oh my god, that is insane." We get the pleasure of watching Travis Hunter every week play these exceptional and really entertaining games. He continues to be so important and so pivotal on both sides of the ball. He played 170 snaps against Texas Tech. He played all 70 on deep on offense, and then let's see, I need to find the number, but 86 of 87 of the plays on defense and all 70 on offense. So 156 from scrimmage and at least 162 overall, counting special teams. So almost 170 snaps. His production is crazy. He did not get tired, and he was one of the most crucial pieces of this Buffs team always. Hopefully, we'll get to go to New York. I would like to go to New York. Still figuring that out,
Yeah,
but
he'd be there. He's
Heis-
amazing. He doesn't
yeah,
take plays off either. It's not like he's out there like he's a man coverage. He was following Josh Kelly around some in this game, playing man coverage in the slot. On offense, he's in the route on every play. He's in the progression on every play. You mentioned his block on the Wester touchdown, which was great. That was another thing that really stuck out on offense was the skill players on this team really, really block uh, well, as they say, no block, no rock. So, um, but that was a great play. Like he just doesn't. He has an endless. It is an endless gas tank. It's incredible to watch.
and Cam Stillman Craig, also very key piece in this game. 5 tackles and just some disruption there going and blitzing. DJ McKinney, 1 tackle for loss and 1 pass break as well. Colorado secondary is, they say that they're the best secondary in the Big 12, and maybe a biased take, but I do agree with the way that they are playing this year. It's really is such a lethal group that is really hard to get by the way that they've grown together. DJ McKinney is, I think we've talked with Coach Prime in the past, like he does look like a very viable NFL draft pick. The way that he has been performing this year and um, playing a lot of man, playing on his own island and being able to go one on one with guys on very many plays. And this has been just an insane group that has really helped carry this defense from front to back. It's been cool to see how the front has developed and their performance throughout the year, while the secondary has kind of carried a lot of the load. And now the front of the defense is really performing up to where they should be at this time of year. And now Colorado is in second place. And just at the beginning of the season with Colorado being projected to finish 11th in the conference, and now it's just all flip-flopped. We didn't anticipate this with such a wild conference. BYU almost got their first loss against Utah. We can get into that, but there's a lot of expectations with this team that have been debunked. Even myself, it's like this team really is a team that can potentially win the Big 12 championship. And it's kind of looking like that, the way that the dominoes are falling every week. And this, you got Utah, you got Kansas, you got Oklahoma State. Those are 3 games that, the path is clear and they're in full control of their destiny for potentially the CFP and the Big 12 championship. So the Colorado couldn't be in a better position right now, the way that they're playing and the tools that they have. There's a lot of guys that are currently injured. We don't know if Shane Cokes is going to be active again this weekend. Jimmy Horn suffered a lower leg injury against Texas Tech. Still questionable whether or not he's going to be active this weekend. They're kind of evaluating up until Thursday, which is today. And if he's able to practice today, then he should be okay to go for Saturday. But overall, this is everything that favorable that wanted to happen in Colorado has happened. And, from that Kansas State game, just 2 losses on the season, which was a close one, they've just really developed into this very formidable team that is going to be really exciting to watch going down the stretch here. So very exciting there. Any final notes on this Texas Tech game that you want to touch on or I maybe missed out on?
I don't think so. No, you mentioned the Big 12 race.
A lot
It's
of penalties in this game, but they were able to negate a
yeah, it
couple of
was an
those.
odd. The second half was just odd. Just odd. The whole thing was a mess. They said they were going to eject entire sections of the crowd, which I was hoping to see solely. I just wanted to see the logistics of what ejecting 1,000 people at one time. That would have been the biggest mess ever.
Flagrants for all of them.
Shout out to Texas fans and Texas Georgia refs for setting the precedent that all fan bases can now just throw trash onto the field whenever because it might make the refs change the call. They never will again. That was a one-time thing. But now, I mean, I think I saw 3 different games on Saturday where fans got mad at the refs and threw trash on the field. It happened last week too. It happened the week before that. It's a weekly thing now, which is just like thank you to the Texas Georgia refs that this is now happens in every big game. Every fan base throws trash on the field now. So,
Yeah,
and
I
that
guess
is
this is a new precedent. I
fully the
will
responsibility of the Texas and
I
the
will
refs.
say
Texas Georgia game.
when we were talking to some of the Texas Tech guys, usually they throw the tortillas after the kickoff and then it like stops. But they were throwing towards this is
They
the
brought extras on Saturday.
according to the text some of the Texas Tech guys, this is the most tortillas last Saturday was the most tortillas they've ever seen being thrown. And
I don't know how
they
many
didn't
tortillas
stop.
are left in Texas after that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many more there
It
could
must
be.
have that especially in that area. It's like outside
I
of
mean,
Lubbock, there's nothing. So there must be a tortilla shortage.
the grocery stores are empty there.
Unfortunate for all the burrito lovers down there, but yeah, Travis Hunter also put a tortilla in his pants. It was a lot. It was way too
I
much.
thought
Even
I thought he was going to throw it when he scored. I thought that's why he did it. I thought he was saving it so that when he scored a touchdown, he was going to throw it in the air. I saw him do it, and I was like, "That's definitely a touchdown celebration."
yeah,
And he didn't do it, and I was
very chaotic game day setting, but very positive that Colorado came out with a win there. We'll move on to Utah so we can keep this thing going. So we have more hoops to talk as well. A lot of games that happened while we were gone. Utah, they're not looking too good. A lot of quarterback issues. Brandon Rose suffered a season ending injury over the weekend. So, Zach Wilson, his little brother, Isaac Wilson, will likely be the starter. You mentioned that he was kind of banged up a bit. I personally didn't see that news, but he potentially dealing with some injuries there. Isaac Wilson has 8 touchdowns as well as 8 interceptions this season with 1,200 yards through all the quarterback turmoil that Utah has been dealing with this year. Um, this is a game that Colorado. All these 3 games are kind of like trap games. Utah was really close to beating BYU. BYU played just terribly on Saturday, and the Utah athletic director went to the press conference after the game and said that the game was stolen from them. But ultimately, it seemed
debating.
fair enough with the defensive holding call and then a 30-yard gain on the next following play. But despite the athletic director's frustrations, Colorado likely has this game in the bag. I mean, from on the numbers perspective, Utah is ranked 14th in total defense, averaging 307.4 yards per game, and 93rd in total offense, 362.9 yards per game. But despite those numbers and them being in the top 20 in total defense and top 100 in total offense, this team just hasn't been able to win games due to the quarterback woes that they've been having. And it's been a really unfortunate season for Kyle Whittingham, who for years now has been running a really dominant team in the Pac-12, was able to get to the Pac-12 championship a couple times. And this is a Utah team that, was projected to win this conference this year. And now they're at the bottom, and it's hard to be a Ute right now. When you look at this team, what do you think is maybe their biggest weakness at the moment, whether it's their quarterback position or maybe something else that I haven't mentioned?
How dare the refs make Utah score 0 points in the second half? How dare they? The holding call should not have been called, but how dare the refs shut Utah out in the second half? Score more points. It's got to be the quarterback, right? I mean, I actually thought Brandon Rose played pretty well against BYU. I was kind of impressed, and I was like, it looked like he was going to give CU something else to deal with. He was running the ball a little bit. He was pushing the ball down the field. I think it was his mom, somebody with a Rose last name on Twitter this morning posted that he tore his Lisfranc in his foot in the second quarter.
Oh God.
He finished the game. That's impressive. So good for Brandon Rose. Get well soon. Hope for a quick recovery there. Isaac Wilson was banged up a couple weeks ago. He was active last weekend. He's been active, so I fully expect it to be him on Saturday. And he just hasn't been very good. He just hasn't been very good. He's a true freshman, which so like look, he's growing. He was a pretty highly rated recruit. Talented, obviously. Runs in the family, obviously older brother in the NFL. But he's just kind of struggled to protect the football. He's struggled to consistently push the ball down the field. It's just been very vanilla on offense with him
Hmm.
back there. And as a result, look, they're going to lean on the running game. Stop me if you've heard this one before. CU has to deal with an elite running back.
Micah
This
Bernard.
Mekhi Bernard is really, really good. One of the best in the Big 12 again. Feels like we've said that every week because we pretty much have. We're going to say it again next week too, and we're going to say it again the week after that. So get ready.
Ollie Gordon, what? DUI, what?
Yeah.
Nothing.
A lot of zone blocking for this Utah offensive line in the run game. They are the ninth highest. This is a pretty good offensive line. They're the ninth highest graded run blocking line in the country. Spencer Fano is an excellent tackle. He will be playing on Sundays very soon. But again, Chidozie Owonkwo will be really big against those zone schemes, eating up blocks, eating up double teams, not allowing those guys to get up to the second level. And then those linebackers have shown that they can tackle. So, Mekhi Bernard's going to get his yards and his production. They're going to feed him a ton. They're going to try to control the clock, but I don't foresee it being a massive, massive problem to the point where like it is like I see it being more like Texas Tech on the ground than it was like Kansas State.
Mm.
Um, so I think they'll be okay there. And then in the passing game, I don't know what Utah is gonna do. Look, they lost one of their top two wide receivers, Money Parks. He got hurt against Houston. He's out for the season. Their tight end, who is a superstar, Brant Keithy, one of the best in the country. He got hurt against BYU. He's out for the season. Poor Kyle Whittingham has got to just be pulling his hair out every
Oh
this
yeah.
2 years in a row with this. They're just running out of guys. They do have Dorian Singer, USC transfer, really good wide receiver. He will still be out there. They move him around a lot. They try to get him the ball a lot. But other than that, Utah, they just don't really have the horses on the outside. And with the way that the CU secondary has been playing, it's just hard for me to see Isaac Wilson being able to consistently find answers in the passing game. And I think that I just think it's going to be a struggle for this Utah offense unless they're able to really gash CU in the running game, which hasn't really happened in over a month.
Yeah, that's going to be something to watch as well. But as you mentioned, it just seems like Colorado has the advantage here. Utah's 14th ranked defense in the FBS, but they just cannot close out games and really assert their dominance. It's almost noon. I should be able to say that word. As they have in prior years, they are not able to close games. They're kind of squeaking out. I mean, they held BYU to 22 points, but that came with a game where BYU was just not sufficient. They were struggling a lot, but Colorado with all of their assets. And I think Cash Cleveland is likely going to make the start at center. That's like kind of the vibe right
Shout out to
now.
Cat.
Um, uh, Coach Phil Loholt said he doesn't really know what's going on with Hank Zelinkus right now, but there's still that competition at center, and Cash and Zelinkus are both taking snaps with the ones. So it's kind of be a maybe game time thing, but it seems like from the vibes that Cash Cleveland is going to start there at center
Can I hit on
again.
Cash real quick? Actually, I meant to
Yeah.
do this about Texas Tech. I was so impressed with him. He played really, really, really well. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not just going to bully defensive tackles off the ball, but he's sound. He's in the right spot in pass protection. He was getting out in space. He was finishing blocks. He got the ball back to the quarterback, which Hank has been struggling to do. So I just, for a guy with not a lot of pedigree coming in to CU, and a guy that he's a freshman walk on, like he was really, really impressive. And I thought that he played some really good football.
Yeah, 51 pass block snaps, only one pressure allowed according to PFF. So it's definitely, you can tip your cap to that, especially for a walk on. I mean, I think at center position as well. There's a lot of things that could potentially go awry, especially in that interior. And he did a really, really good job. And Shador Sanders was only sacked 3 times, which it's slow. You can kind of see this offensive line coming together. It's these games where they're not allowing more than 5 or 6 sacks, at least in recent games. And this is going to be another game where the Colorado's offensive line can have a really good game. Like you said, pull some screens, use Jordan Seaton more, and kind of have Cash Cleveland settle into maybe his new potential role that he'll have going forward. It's impressive to see a story like that, and he's a really likable guy. It's hard not to like Cash Cleveland and see a walk on playing some really meaningful minutes in some big games here down the stretch. So offensive line is playing a lot better than they have since the beginning of the season. Jimmy Horn still questionable. Um, Colorado's going to, lean heavily on their pass game as they normally do. When you look at this kind of ground matchup in the trenches, do you think that Colorado will have maybe the advantage here running the ball, or do you think it's going to be a little bit more difficult?
I don't think it'll be like a big day on the ground. I don't think they're going to get totally stifled, but I do think that it's kind of another week, kind of like last week, where the passing game is going to kind of carry the day. And I think the way that Utah plays defense dictates a lot of that. They're good up front. They're good at the second level. They've got a good front seven. They stop the run well. Arizona ran the ball really well against Utah, which was interesting. Um, that didn't make a lot of sense to me, but they did. So maybe CU can pop a couple of big runs. But Utah, it's interesting. They play a lot of man coverage on the outside, similar to CU. I'm curious if they lean into that against CU with all of the talent on the outside. Especially the last couple weeks, Utah has really they've kind of just said, screw it. And we're just going to blitz the crap out of you and play man coverage on the outside. They've, between Zion Chris and Jake Retzloff for Houston and BYU in Utah's last 2 games, they've dropped back to pass 53 times.
Mm-hmm.
Utah has blitzed on 36 of them.
Oh.
So more than two-thirds of the time, Utah has blitzed in the last 2 games. So they're just coming after people. I'm curious what kind of the plan is. Are they going to do that to Shador Sanders? That's one thing that, obviously heating up Shador Sanders is the best way to attack this Colorado offense. It's better if you can do it with 4 than if you need to do it with 6. When Texas Tech blitzed Shador, I thought he was really good finding answers quickly. Really good diagnosing the pressure, where the pressure is coming from, just getting the ball out, getting it to the right spots, replacing the blitz. There was one in the first half. He hit LeJounte Wester on a slant after his guy blitzed. And Texas Tech didn't blitz a ton, but I did think Shador did a good job. So I'm curious if Utah kind of, leans more into that and comes after Shador a lot. The other thing with the man coverage is that Shador's legs are going to be big. They were huge in that Texas Tech game. Obviously, when you run man coverage, all the DBs, their backs are turned to the quarterback because they're all looking at the receivers. So that opens up a lot of scrambling opportunities. Shador scrambled 4 times last week. 3 of them went for first downs. He had over 30 yards on those plays. He had the designed run in the red zone for a touchdown. So that's kind of been something that Pat Shurmur and Shador have been unlocking as the season's gone on. That could be a big factor this weekend. And that could be how they get some more production in the run game and kind of force Utah's hand. Like, hey, if you're going to play man and blitz the whole time, we're going to do this. Now you need to come up with a counter for that. So I'm very curious what Utah ends up doing here, because kind of what they like to do isn't a great matchup for what CU brings to the table.
Mm-hmm. Colorado just presents a multi-headed monster with all their wide receiver weapons, and they're able to get you in a variety of ways. All right, score prediction. I've Colorado in this one. Seems like that is a fair one with 1-5 Utah. It just seems like Colorado has the advantage here with the weapons that they have. Shador Sanders being the elite quarterback that he is, kind of same usual topics that I note upon. And I think, well, what is going to be the kicker here is that Utah doesn't have a quarterback. a sufficient quarterback that is going to help carry them through a defense that is playing exceptional football right now. So I'll go. I don't know the same score as last week. I'll go 40 to Colorado and 23 Utah.
Yeah, I just Utah is going to be very desperate in this game, I will add. Although I'm interested to see how they come out. There's been a lot of talk about, CU is everybody's Super Bowl. Shador has said it, and to some
They
degree,
are.
to some degree, that is true. I don't think that's true this week because last week was Utah's Super Bowl, their biggest rival, the Holy War. They took a heartbreaking loss in a game that they really should have won. So I'm curious, like how they respond to that.
Mhm.
But they are desperate. They're 4-5. They need to win two of the last three games to reach a bowl game. So they've got a lot to play for. I just, I just don't think they have the guys. I just don't. Like, I just think they're out of guys. And I
Yeah.
think defensively, I think they're going to be searching for answers that are kind of outside of their identity. I don't like the way that they play, similar to CU on defense, they like to dictate the terms to the offense. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that. I don't think it'll be a huge day for CU on offense. This is a good defense. I've got a lot of respect for the way that they play and the way like BYU is a very good offense and Utah shut them down pretty much for most of the night. But I just think it's going to be such a struggle on offense. I'm going to go CU 27, Utah 10. And I did hit the score last week. I did
Yeah,
hit the
you did.
41-27. I did hit the score. I'm going for two in a row. 27 to 10.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a little bit too ambitious with the 40. This is it is a capable defense, and it's the reason why not Utah's been able to stay in games, but fuck it. Okay, we'll talk hoops, and then we'll get out of here. We'll skedaddle. Two very different games. I went to the game last night against Cal State Fullerton. They absolutely routed them, beating them by 30 points. They shared the ball much better than they did against Northern Colorado, which Northern Colorado was a double overtime shocker of a game. I was watching that on a kind of a broken stream, and I was right before Marcel McCreary hit that three to force it in overtime. I was just like, okay, there's no way, and it completely Colorado's coverage there just completely fell apart. But also McCreary hit one of the craziest threes I've seen either on the NBA side or on the college side this
He
season.
was
You
a
know,
heck
he
of a
was
shot.
he was double teamed and he hit that right in the corner, and I was just
He's a
like,
heck of
oh
a
my
shot.
god. But
Off an offensive rebound too. He ran it out there. His shot. I was like,
yeah, that's what made that kind of possession so bad
they
for
played well
Colorado
in
as
this game. I
well.
was impressed.
Yeah, Northern Colorado,
They played
they're
well.
ranked they're first in the Big Sky at 1-2-1 now with the loss against Colorado. But I mean, they're a sufficient team. But when the Northern Colorado almost beat Colorado for the first time since 1935, and Colorado beat them by 90 to 88, barely got away with that win. It was just a close game the entire time. They were just kind of off their rhythm. They turned the ball over 21 times. Turnovers continue to be kind of the crux of this team. Last night they had 16 turnovers, but they were sharing the ball a lot better. And again, the offensive rhythm was more effective against a Cal State Florida team that is just not good. They're 0-3 now with the loss last night. And it was just very two disparate games. And thank God Colorado snuck out with a win against Northern Colorado, because this team is just, you kind of have to be patient with them. They're learning how to work together. There just hasn't been quite that guy that's been like, okay, that's the guy. Elijah Malone had 27 points against Northern Colorado. Last night, Andre Yakimovsky had seven. He led the bus with 17 points and was shooting the ball well from three. Uh, no, last night, no one played more than 22 minutes. Coach Boyle really went deep into his rotation there, and everyone was kind of getting their minutes and sharing their time. Northern Colorado was a humbling game to where it's like, okay, this is where things can really go south for this team, especially in terms of turnovers. They can get really exposed there, and I think defensively as well, they were just giving up a plethora of shots where it's like, okay. But shout out to Marcel McCreary because that three was insane. And it was a close game. It was literally down to the final possession in Northern Colorado. And last night against Cal State Fullerton, they were able to, okay, get back to the basics and really dominate, as they should be doing in a non-conference as a Power Four team, really asserting their dominance and showing why they are, at this level. But as I mentioned, there's not quite a guy yet. Every night there's going to be that guy. Last Ashan Jope had his first start of the season while Bangkok Dad came off the bench, and from the stat sheet, Asan didn't post any points. He didn't take any shots, but he was plus 25 in his plus or minus, and he had 8 rebounds. And Tad mentioned him in the post game press conference as the kind of unsung hero and the unselfish player of this team. And he said that if everyone played like Asan Jope does, that we would be in good hands. And that's something that I recognize because, I looked and I'm like, okay, Asan's not really shooting the ball well, but he is being an effective defender and rebounding the ball well. He led the team in rebounds last night, and good to see him, get the recognition that he deserves on his first start. Yeah, the starting lineup it's still kind of rotating here, but
Gonna be a lot of
Javon
shuffling.
Ruffin is still the starting guard, and I think you and I have talked about just the impact that Trevor Baskin has shown on the floor. Even last night, like immediately when he hits the floor, you see the difference, you see the production, you see the effectiveness. Was forcing he was forcing turnovers, he was scoring the ball, he was rebounding. It's just you kind of see that more of that pace from him that you'd want to see. And I think that's something that Colorado is struggling right now is just like moving, being a little bit more quick. I think last night too, towards the end of the game, they were maybe a little bit too fast, and that caused them to turn the ball over on some lobs and just some miscommunications there. But from what you watched in the Northern Colorado game, what were you impressed with? What did you see? And you weren't even able to watch last night's game because ESPN Plus was screwing everyone. So yeah, Cal State Fullerton, they beat the shit out of that team last night. But Northern Colorado, what was like something that was surprising to you, something that you saw within that game?
Yeah, it's gonna be like you said, it's gonna be a lot of patience with this team. It's a lot of guys that haven't played together, and they lost a lot of talent. Like let's keep it straight. They are not as talented as they were last year. Like they're not. You mentioned Trevor Baskin. He struggled with his shot a little bit. He struggled from the free throw line. He's turning the ball over a little bit, but he's so active on both ends, rebounding the ball, making plays defensively. He had 2 stocks, steals and blocks. Last night he had, I believe, 2 as well against Northern Colorado. I want to shout out Elijah Malone also, who totally saved them against Northern Colorado. At some point in the second half, the offense just became throw the ball to Elijah Malone, and we're just going to let it work from there. He was excellent, especially down the stretch in the overtimes. Um, he finished with 27 points. He was 10 for 12 from the free throw line, which was big because Northern Colorado didn't really have anybody that could guard him. 8 for 12 from the field, super efficient. Um, Defensively, they gave up too many threes. Northern Colorado was kind of chucking also, which sometimes. And Northern Colorado made a lot of shots, but the rebounding was a little bit frustrating at times. The defense, giving up open threes, that was a little bit frustrating at times. And then you hit on the turnovers, which are just that they're a big problem right now. That is putting it simply. You can't turn the ball over 21 times against anybody and win. Um, and I think like this the struggle that they are having is they don't really have somebody right now who can create shots for themselves and their teammates consistently outside of like a set or like they just don't have anyone who can kind of take the pressure off of the offense right now by making a couple shots or get into the paint. Like just dribble drive into the paint, create a kick out, create an open three. Okay, there's 10 on the shot clock. They don't really have somebody that they can give the ball to and say, hey, there's 10 on the shot clock. We need somebody to either get a good shot or to draw some help and get a good shot for someone else. They just don't really have that. And as a result, they're doing a lot of over dribbling, which is leading to a lot of turnovers. They are forced to move the ball a ton, which is a good thing, but it's hard to do that consistently with a team that hasn't played together a ton and not turn the ball over a bunch. And
Mm,
that's kind of the problem that they're running into right now is that they lose a lot of possessions because they are almost fully reliant on their movement and their cohesiveness and stuff like that to create shots. And those are just things that such a new team doesn't really have right now. So hopefully that comes along. But until then, I think that we're going to keep seeing a lot of these high turnover games, especially, I mean, Maui is on the horizon, which we're going to learn a lot about this team. And it will be learning on the job with some of the other teams that are going to be down there.
yeah. I'll be at Harvard on Sunday, noon tip, which is nice, to 10 a.m. kickoff on Saturday, noon on Sunday. I'll get to go home and watch the 49ers play the Seahawks. Woo-hoo. Women's
Yeah,
hoops.
I don't want the Seahawks are cooked. It's over.
Yeah, well, Troy doesn't care about his team anymore. So,
I
for the
do care,
record,
but it's over. Looking at mock drafts. We
uh,
can draft a guard, please.
women's hoops.
I draft
You
Cash Cleveland. He'd be better than
okay?
Connor Williams.
uh,
Sorry, ran over, ran over.
Troy's frustrated. It's hard in the NFC West. I mean, the Cardinals are above us all. I don't know. I want to get into that. We want to talk women's hoops.
That
You
is
were
a
at the game on Thursday. Jade Masego, she was someone that I mentioned and that the team mentioned to watch out for this season. And she's gradually showing to be one of the most efficient scorers on the team, while Frida Foreman is still out with a foot injury. 8 of 12 from the field against Northern Colorado. She did get into some foul trouble, and through this game, they went on a road trip. There was some foul trouble there, but um, big impact player there. Namar, do you? Did I say that
do.
right?
I'm your do.
Namir do. 14
Nine.
points, 5 of 10 from the field. Oh my god, my cat wants to get in here so bad. She just wanted to get in here so bad. 14 points as well. And then Johanna Tadair had 10 points as well. Those are all the double digit scores. With Frida Foreman out, uh, when you were at this game, what did you kind of learn about this team since your first kind of glance, sitting down, watching them? What are they good at? What they really capitalize on in this matchup against a team, Northern Colorado team that's kind of, eh.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what this looks like when Frida Foreman comes back, which sounds like it's going to be sooner rather than later, hopefully. We want to see Frida back out there hooping. But they're athletic in the front court. They are not big. They are very, very small. That is going to be a problem in the Big 12. But they're going to have to beat people with their athleticism. Jade Masagayo, like you said, she's a really good rim runner, really good athlete out in space, can defend out in space. And she was efficient scoring around the rim, which was impressive. 8 for 12. Northern Colorado didn't have somebody that could really overwhelm her with size, which is kind of how you want to attack this CU front court. So that'll be interesting once she gets into some bigger matchups. Um, I was also really impressed with Naimir Du. Like you said, she's just impactful. She knocked down a couple of threes. She's really, really athletic. Showed the ability to put the ball on the floor and get in the lane, create some shots, for her teammates, finishing around the rim. So I thought that she was really, really good in this game. It's just going to be a struggle, I think, offensively, until Frida comes back to kind of open the floor up. I don't think teams right now really respect their shooting. Um,
Mm,
they they only scored 47 points in a loss to Boise State on I believe that was Sunday.
yeah, it
Uh,
was. And we played on Tuesday against
they
Nevada.
really, really struggled in that game. They shot, you know what they shot from three in that game?
0.
0 for 17. It's
That's tough.
hard to win on the road when you're 0 for 17 from three. Lior Garzon had a big game in the first game. She can shoot. She's kind of struggled with the shot recently. Tabitha Betson, she's struggled with the shot so far this year. So they need that to kind of open up, but having Frida back will really help that as well. But the bottom line is, look, even if uh Frida coming back doesn't take the offense to like a new level, it will help the offense. She's too good of an offensive player for it not to. But even if it's only like a minor improvement, we know what J.R. Payne is going to do. She's going to get the best out of this team. They're going to defend. They're going to rebound. They're going to play hard. They're going to be sound. They're going to be in all these games. Obviously, they grinded out a win on the road against Wyoming, who is a good Mountain West team. They almost were able to get a win against Boise State on the road, despite not making a three, who is another good Mountain West team. So, look, this team is going to grind. It's going to be hard for them. It's kind of similar to the men, where it's a lot of new pieces. I mean,
Mhm.
they have so many new players on this team. It's really just Kendall Wetta and Sarah Rose Smith are pretty much the only holdovers, right?
Mhm.
So it's going to be a grind. Getting Frida back will help. Um, but and we'll see how they fare against some size. But I do think that their athleticism in the front court and on the wing, that's been the part that has really stuck out to me as like, okay, like that was the biggest question coming in was what, with so many new pieces, so many unknowns, what can they kind of hang their hat on? What is something that they can kind of use to their advantage and build off of that? And I think that running and being really athletic, and that's going to allow them to be disruptive defensively and cause a lot of havoc, which J.R. Payne teams like to do anyways. I think that that's a good start, and this team should get a lot better from here.
And the Buffs play Southern University at 5 p.m. on Sunday, a doubleheader with Harvard men's playing Harvard, and then women playing later in the evening. But so far, the women are 3-1, the men are 3-0. So I think Boise State was kind of a tough one. They only lost by 3 points there, but they just weren't shooting as well. There was only one double-digit score with Jade and Sarah Rose Smith got into foul trouble. It just wasn't their best performance. There's some things they got to clean up, but they went into Nevada and beat them 75-59. That's the
59.
score.
They did
Yeah.
themselves no favors with the schedule. Two Mountain West difficult road games with all of these transfers are right off the bat. I was like, man, they are diving right into it.
Yeah, it's a tough run for them, but so far so good. That's all from us. We got to go. I got work a little bit later, but thanks for tuning in, Buffs fans. See you guys next week, and hope to see you potentially at Big Noon Kickoff. And I'm excited for an early kick. These 10 a.m. kicks
Yes,
are
10
great.
a.m. kick. Let's go.
I can't promise my hair is going to be in its best shape, but I will be there. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.